If you don't have the habits to build something, you most likely don't have the habits to sustain the result. If you're the type of person who thinks more is going to bring you more, then you're not going to change your habits.
They associate massive pain to not having money. And when you're in debt and you have to climb out, think about it this way. If you're in a dark hole, you have to learn how to build a ladder. Then when you learn how to build that ladder and you get out of the hole, now you can use that ladder to also build a building.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was last week's live Q&A. Why do so many people have an aversion to tracking their habits? Today, for episode number 802, more isn't always the answer. We are going to talk about resources versus resourcefulness. Also, we hope for those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving. Gratitude, food, family. Best holiday ever.
Yes.
Best holiday ever. All right, so today we're going to talk about resources, like going out and chasing resources versus being resourceful. I remember when I was in corporate and I was making like $12,000 checks like every other week. And I remember having way more resources than I needed, but I wasn't necessarily... Well, what I will say is this. I drove a $5,000 car. I lived at home with my mother. When I did move out of my home, I lived with my girlfriend at the time. We lived in Worcester on a lake. And it was $950 rent total, and we split it in half because it was supposed to be only one person. It was a one-bedroom. I've always been extremely, extremely resourceful, and I get this, I think, from my mom. So my father passed away at 2. The listeners have heard me talk about that. What I don't talk about that often is how I had a stepdad from age 3 all the way to 14. And when I was 14, my stepdad left our family. And we literally went from, our family, my mom, my sister, my stepdad, and I were designing. I remember going to the facility, the factory, where we were customizing our own yacht. And back then it was like $300,000 for this yacht. And back then, this was like the early 2000s. That's a lot of money. And it was a custom yacht. And we went from like that kind of wealth. My stepdad was the main income earner. To when he left, my mom basically negotiated to keep the home because he had built it. And he got the yacht, we got the home type of thing. And after that, I was so poor. My family was so poor that I literally got reduced lunch and then eventually free lunch at school because our income was so low. And I remember my buddy Kiki and I talking about how like he has to pay full price for school lunch and I don't. And he like thought that was unfair. And I was trying to explain to him, so anyways.
Economics.
Yeah, it was, and I also got a lot of financial aid, which I'm so blessed. And that's one of the reasons why I want to give back so much now. But the point is resources versus resourcefulness. I've always been very resourceful because I watched my mom have to scrap to survive. Because she always, literally my girlfriend and I are still laughing because my mom texts us constantly now that we're moved into a new home. And she's like, I trash picked this, I trash picked that. Like she literally went to Salvation Army and she took like 15 pictures of couches because we're shopping for a couch and my mom's buying us a couch for my birthday and for Christmas. So it's a combined present of like Christmas and birthday. So it's like a expensive, nice couch. And she's like, why don't you just get this $80 one from Salvation Army? And I'll shampoo it. I'll clean it. Don't worry. And we're going to end up getting a new couch. But the point is that my mom is extremely, extremely resourceful because she never felt like she had the capabilities to go and earn a lot of resources. And so I think that's where I got that from. And that's definitely how we've run our business. And that's why I was making almost $200,000 a year, but I was still driving a $5,000 car. Your buddy, our friend Matt, like I literally bought his high school car, even when I had $150,000 in the bank, for $3,200. because I just refuse to waste money, because I know the value of resources over time, and more importantly, the value of resourcefulness over time. And so a lot of the decisions that I make, a lot of people don't understand. It's like, why would you buy a 2004 when you were making almost $200,000 a year? Like, wouldn't you just go get a new car? It's like, no, that doesn't make sense to me personally. So this will be an interesting episode.
It's interesting because, as with most things, you and I are kind of polar opposites. I was the first car I ever got. I was working at a gas station making, I think I was making like $11 an hour or something, whatever it was back then. I don't know. My first car was 900
Helen's.
My first car was a V6 Mustang, white, piece of garbage. I think it had 144,000 miles on it when I bought it. And first thing I did, I went out and bought like a $500 sound system and put it in the car. The sound system I had, I swear to you, the sound system I had was more valuable than the car. Genuinely. It was more expensive than the car. Next car, so I got a raise at Helen's. I think I went from $11 to $12 an hour. A couple of years later, I got a newer Mustang. It was $7,500, 21% interest rate. So I ended up paying like 10 G's for it. Whole thing.
Oh, man.
I end up, and I've told this story, but I remember I was working as a forklift operator and a truck driver, and I was working so much overtime. I think I was only making $13 an hour, but I was getting like $650 a week because I was working so much overtime. So I went out and bought a brand new Subaru WRX. I think it was like $29. I don't remember how much it was. I couldn't afford this. So I am very much I'm changing this. I was very much the opposite of Alan, where the second I had resources, I would spend them. I would use them, and usually not to grow. Where do you think, like if somebody is listening right now, how do they know how well they're using resources versus resourcefulness? Like, what are some signs?
Well, and I appreciate the question. This is going to be a very, very valuable episode. First of all, understand wherever you grew up and whatever you grew up around is the paradigm that you probably are running. So, for example, you've talked about how your family, shout out to your mom and Memes. They both donated to Books for Babes right away as soon as they heard about it. So the fact that they were willing to be so giving and so generous with their resources tells me, like, that's such a good cause, and I appreciate that so much. But it also tells me, how loose their purse strings are in many regards as well. And some people are I think of it like a drive to five, Kev. Some people are way too tight with their purse strings, and they're way too scarce, and they never spend any money. And I would argue that where I grew up, it was very much that. It was like almost like we always scrap no matter what. And we don't necessarily invest in our own brighter future. And then there's other people who are just so abundant, like one of our mentors who's just throwing money around and like, hey, let's go buy new suits just for the sake of doing it. Yeah. And so you got to understand where you're at. Are you overly abundant or overly scarce? Because the truth of the matter is 5 is the harmonious balance. And so what are some indicators? If you're on the abundant side, you probably don't track your finances. You probably love shopping. I know some clients that have a shopping habit. They have a really negative shopping habit. I'm like, because we do what's called an expense audit. And I've done this with Kevin too. As a matter of fact, anyone listening, you got to do an expense audit. You got to. You are wasting money. Kevin and I were wasting money. We were both spending money on QuickBooks. We weren't even using it. Yep. Because we use a different tracking.
A couple other things too.
Gym memberships, like all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
So you got to do an expense audit, and all that is you sit down and you look at where your money's going. And you one of my clients and I did this recently, and we went through every single thing that she spends money on, and one of them was shopping. And it was like, you're spending more on shopping than almost all of your other bills. If you eliminate that one bad habit, you're like in the green, because she was so concerned. She was going to go get another job. She was going to move. It's like, you don't even have to move. You just have to stop shopping. It's like $500 extra a month. That can go a long way, because you're already close to the green. And by green, I mean your income is greater than your expenses. And so what are some indicators? You got to understand if your purse string, are you very, very, very stringent with money to a detriment where it's like you won't invest in a book, you won't buy a new book, right? Even though it's good for your future. There's a book. Here's a good example. There's a book at Barnes & Noble that I intend on buying. It's a Kobe Bryant book he wrote, and it's $130. It's like a big, thick Mamba mentality book, and he's a hero of mine, and I want to put that book right back here. And I want it to remind me every single day of how to become the best version of yourself, because that's what the Mamba mentality basically represents, just like at Next Level You. And that's an investment where it's like, I have the money to go buy that. And I intend on that making me more money in the future. And so if I had too tight of purse strings or I was too scarce, I would never buy that. I'd be like, no, I shouldn't buy that. So if you're on that end, you got to go more towards the abundance end and be like, I'm going to trust that this book is going to earn me more money in the future because it's going to raise my habits, it's going to raise my discipline, it's going to raise my Mamba mentality, right? So you got to know that you got to treat yourself sometimes. If you don't think you're worth it, you'll always be scarce. That's not good. You won't take risks, you won't invest. But I would argue that I was overly scarce when you and I met. I think I was overly, don't spend any money, $3,200 car, even though I have $150,000 in the bank. And by the way, the car kept breaking down, right? When in reality, that was a waste of time, right? So whereas you're just like brand new Subaru WRX, you make $12 an hour. In my head, I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand which end you're on. And once you understand which end you're on, you got to get outside your comfort zone and get a little closer to 5. Because it's going to be uncomfortable. So Emilia and I, she's a little farther on the scarce end. I've become way more abundant. And so we always talk about it, 0 to 10, where are you at? If 0 is too scarce, too tight, and 10 is like you're just, spending money needlessly, like where are you at? And I think recently we talked about it. She's going to try to come a little more to my end. And that's actually why she and Bianca are going to end up working with Next Level Podcast Solutions, because that's very, very worth it to them, because they're investing a lot of time to do all that themselves when they could be just investing that money and then use their time to go make more money.
The reason, too, Alan and I, again, our goal when we're coming up with the episodes is always, what does the community need to hear that maybe they've never heard? Maybe you've never heard the, resources versus resourcefulness. More isn't always better. The reason more isn't always better is because if you get more without the habits to get more, you won't keep more for long. And I think that there's a lot of...
You go deeper on that? Like, give an example?
Well, I just think of... if you think of like the lottery mentality, like most people, I don't know the percentage, you might know it, most people who win the lottery end up broker than they were before they won the lottery. It's because if you don't have the habits to build something, you most likely don't have the habits to sustain the result. If it was your job, Alan Lazaros, your job to put the last piece of stone on the top of this pyramid, you wouldn't know how to do it because you didn't lay the foundation, you didn't do the middle level, you'd have no idea how to do it, and you would knock it off the top and the whole thing might crumble. And you could do the same thing with fitness. If all of us woke up tomorrow with the bodies of our dreams, but we didn't design how to get them, we probably wouldn't keep them. So I do think, I look back to my life of one thing that happened is when I went from job to job to job to job, I always tended to make more money. And then when I got my job it started at $50 an hour, and I at some points was making $115 an hour. The problem is I wasn't resourceful. Every time I made more money, I spent more money. Every single time. Without cause. That's just the way I was wired. Where for you, it would be make more money, save more money, or make more money, invest more money, whatever. So if you're out there, the reason this is important is because if you're the type of person who thinks more is going to bring you more, then you're not going to change your habits. And that really is like a short game. And Alan has been very impactful in my life and in the business where it's like, I remember, 2 years ago, I was like, hey man, I think we should get a loan. Like we should really go to one of our mentors who are millionaires. Like the person we had in mind has a net worth of like $400 or $500 million. And we were like, dude, let's just ask for like, $100,000. And I'll pay off my debts. You can pay off whatever you have, and we'll just invest the rest. And you're like, it doesn't make any sense, Kev. Like, I know you think it'll be a quick fix, but it's not worth it. We can just be more resourceful. We don't need more resources. So that's one of the other reasons I thought this episode would be valuable, because you do live this, and it's helped us a lot in the business. Because if it was up to me, we both have Lamborghinis, branded NLU Lamborghinis for sure. But
which would be really beneficial to our brand, believe it or not. That
tax write-offs, it would. Yeah, that would help us tremendously.
Yeah.
We would blow up.
Hey everyone, I'm Helen Baker from Melbourne, Australia. I'm an entrepreneur and a client of Alan's from Next Level University. I've had many business coaches in the past, and I can honestly say that Alan is seriously next level, and excuse the pun, but he has this unique ability to help you find a solution to your business problems using his intellect and his business modeling and his genuine, heartfelt desire to help you achieve your goals. I can be vulnerable with Alan, I can share anything and feel comfortable in his presence, knowing that at the end of our coaching sessions, I feel empowered to do incredible things. So if you're looking for a business coach, I highly recommend Alan, because his advice and his ability to coach you will be instrumental in achieving your success.
I just want to go a little deeper real quick on, we got 11 minutes here. Long form episode, love it. So the reason why that loan would be a bad idea, in my opinion, is because you'd get rid of the necessity for us to go out and learn how to make more money.
Right.
And then remember, it's the dark holes you find yourselves in. This is why most millionaires were in massive debt at one point.
Yeah.
They associate massive pain to not having money. And when you're in debt and you have to climb out, you learn. Think about it this way. If you're in a dark hole, you have to learn how to build a ladder. Then when you learn how to build that ladder and you get out of the hole, now you can use that ladder to also build a building and then a skyscraper. And so what I think is really important for people to understand is that, okay, imagine this. If Kevin and I can learn how to succeed with no money, when we have money, do you know how good we're going to be at being able to succeed? It's a system and it's a process. It's not a one-time quick fix. And that's why the lottery is such a good analogy. See, if Kevin were to have won $1 million when you were buying Subaru WRXs at $11 an hour, you would have lost that money, probably.
Definitely.
Whereas if you won $1 million now, you and I would be so good with that money to put it in the right places to make sure that it makes more money long term. The goal is long-term impact, and money is a way in which you can impact. If you have more money, you can get better team members. You can get better books. You can get better courses. You can invest in better marketing. You can hire team. You can optimize systems. You can get new software. You can have better audio equipment. You can have a better camera. Everything gets better with capital, but capital is and I don't think a lot of people understand this. This is my analogy. Let's do this. So we have the Next Level Hope Foundation, and I have huge vision for the Next Level Hope Foundation. I know Kevin does as well. And the idea is basically we want to rent out a rec center every single year on Father's Day for underprivileged boys who grew up without fathers. And the goal is to use the resources we have now, which right now we only have $300, and technically more than that because we're going to calculate how much. I think it's 1% of all earnings up to this point. So it's probably around, like, my guess is like $2,500, something like that. But my point is that we're going to invest that $2,500 in 2022 on Father's Day, and we're going to try to get a male character-driven male role model to come in and to excite the kids, and it's going to be awesome. But what we can do with $2,500, if we can stretch that $2,500 and really make something magnificent, now imagine what we can do the following year when it's $10,000, and then the year after that when it's $20,000, and then $40,000, and then $80,000, and then $160,000, and then $320,000, and then $640,000, right? So, I told Emilia this recently too. Last year we did Books for Babes around the holidays, and I just redid the GoFundMe. So she basically writes the main copy, and then I edit it. When we do our book together, she's going to be the main writer, and I'm going to be the editor because I'm good at honing. She's good at expansion. Masculine, feminine. So I redid basically she wrote out the copy for the GoFundMe page for Books for Babes, and she said, can you please go edit this and improve it? And I wrote it, and I was nearly in tears, sort of editing this, not writing it, editing it. And in it, she's like, 1% improvement. We raised $1,000 last year. We want to raise $1,100 or $1,200 this year. I said, sweetheart, no. So I want to do double every year. We can do $2,000 this year. So our goal is 2,000 this year, and then next year it'll be 4,000, and then the year after it'll be 8,000, then 16, and it continues 32, 64, all that 128. So, but the reason why is because I told her this. I said, sweetheart, the 1% improvements are daily. Yearly, it better double. Because I said both of our impact has doubled. We have way bigger communities than we did last year. We're way more. We have a team. She has Isa. I have Amy. We have systems in place. We're ready. We're more than ready to do this better and bigger this time. Big things start small, but if you can't handle the small, you'll never attract big. And I think it's important, instead of going out and trying to chase a lump sum of money. One of my clients right now is very, very successful, made a lot of money in a very short amount of time, and he wants to go out and get angel investors. And honestly, and I've talked to him about this, I wonder to myself if that's the right play. When you could just reinvest your capital that you just earned into team, and instead of going out and getting this big lump sum and then wondering what to do with it and then giving away equity. So Kevin and I chose in advance not to give away equity. We could have gone out and gotten investors. You know, we chose not to do that because we want to, first of all, we don't want anyone else's hands in our cookie jar. We don't want anyone to be able to tell us what we can and can't do with our company. We want to make sure that we're growing exponentially from our core values and being resourceful all along the way. There's a great book called Stretch that I remember recommending to Kevin to really drive this point home, where it's like a lot of companies actually end up failing because they go out and get tons of investment. And then when you have millions of dollars, you end up wasting a lot of it. There's a lot of waste. I did finance. I remember when I was 21 years old, I was in charge of a $20 million product line at a company called Sensata Technologies. And it was like wild how much waste there was. And I know when there's abundance, there's a lot of waste. We all get it, right? When there's 3 packs of Oreos, you end up, wasting a lot of them. Whereas when there's only a few, you cherish every cookie, right? So it's just it's human nature, and it's important to be on the right side of this.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, I just think it's important to figure out, if you don't learn how to do it small, it's going to be very hard for you to do it big. You know, our first event we ever co-hosted had 50 people.
Yep.
I think it was like 40. I think 44 came or something like that. But if you jumped right to like 1,000 people, it's just, even with all the resources, it's like, here's $100,000, go put this event together. It's like, well, I could probably do it for way less, considering we've done 50 events for a very minuscule amount of money. So I do think that's important. Like, if you're out there, and I think podcasting is great too, of like, actually, let me tell you a story. One of my clients the other day, she was talking about her show, and she's like, honestly, at some point, I think I might sell this off. And I was like, tell me more. Like, what do you mean? And she said, well, some of my friends in the industry have sold their podcasts. And when you sell your podcast, you sell off it's like selling an email list or it's like selling a company, basically. And she's like, I think I could get like $100,000 to $150,000 for it. Like, what do you think? And I said, I think it's a huge mistake. Like, huge long-term mistake. Yeah, $150,000 is nice, but like, you can make that in a couple of years if you just listen to what I'm saying. And I said, Alan and I would never, under any circumstances, sell our company.
No.
Like, you could offer us $1 billion right now.
Right now.
It wouldn't even answer the email. She's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, because it's going to be way more than that. It's good because we've had to grow from the ground up. Like, we're going to make so much more money, but we also know what to do with the money now. And we know how to save money.
If someone offered $1 billion, we would just immediately make Next Level U 2.0. Right? we would just sell it and then make a new podcast and then do everything we were going to do, but now with $1 billion. No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Episodes.
Yeah, no, I know. You know I'm kidding.
I know.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
But it's such an important thing to realize, like, if you don't know how to build it at a small level, at a small scale, it doesn't matter what else you get. Like, if you don't have the skill set to succeed at a small level, you most likely won't have the skill set to succeed. Think of it this way. What's a good analogy for this? Okay. I love fighting. Mixed martial arts, boxing, I love it. I absolutely love it. There are people who have been fighting since they were 5 years old. And when you're 5 years old, you're resourceful. You hang stuff in your closet to hit. You have your friends hold mitts for you. You're training in different ways. You're training at the playground when you don't have any money. There's like millionaires who are switching over into boxing right now. who never had to be resourceful. They go hire the best trainers in the world. It's not close. You're not as good as these other people because you didn't have to be resourceful. And you didn't have those habits for as long as those other people did. So just think to yourself, anytime before you buy something, number one, do I need this? Is this serving me? Am I only buying this because I have more money in my wallet than I did last week? And if that's the case, then you could probably be more resourceful and you could use things to stretch a little bit more. That's what I would say. And the goal, again, life, love, health, and wealth, it's life, but it's also wealth. If you're spending a lot of money on stuff you don't have to, you're jeffing yourself long term. And if you live below your means, that's one of the ways to be financially free later in life. Live below your means now and succeed later.
Superpower. I know someone right now who makes, I'm pretty sure it's like, I don't know, $18 an hour. If she stays on this current trajectory with her investments, she'll be a multimillionaire. There's no version, mathematically speaking, of her not being a millionaire with the diversified assets that she has. I have some friends in college that started investing when they were in their teens, and they just are a multimillionaire now. And that doesn't mean they make $1 million in a given year. That's what people need to understand. It doesn't mean, what's a good way to explain this, and then we'll go. Kevin and I did this recently. We put $100 into a financial calculator. So if you put $100 in a bank account and grew it by 1% per day for 1,000 days, you'd end up with $2 million. It's important to understand the long-term compound effect. That's why the compound effect is the book I recommend. When people ask me, like, what I got interviewed recently on, it's a podcast called Insights into Success, and he has a segment where he talks about books, and he asked me about my top book recommendations for someone who wants to be more successful, and I said, honestly, the compound effect by far. It's not because Darren's a great author. It's not because that book is perfect. It's because that concept is the most powerful concept on the planet. Einstein called the law of compounding the eighth wonder of the world. Albert Einstein, fairly smart individual. Kevin and I had more listens in one day last week than the entirety of the first year. Guys, that's not even surprising to me. That's not even remotely surprising to me. I'm surprised it's not way more, to be completely honest with you. But I don't think other people understand that. And so that's what we're talking about. Be resourceful. If you do invest, if you spend money, there's a big difference between spending money and investing money. Spending money means that you're spending money on something that doesn't ever make you more money. Investing money is putting money, capital, into something that will eventually make you more money. So when Kevin and I invest money into a new camera, that new camera brings our business more money because now our content is higher quality. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the main thing, is just understand, are you an investor or a spender? Minimize spending, maximize investing, and you'll watch your whole life and your dreams come true.
This is
huge oversight.
This is the book that we're talking about. Let me get
Stretch.
My fat head out of the way, but by Scott Sonnenstein.
We got to interview him. Also, let's put that link in the show notes.
Show notes
to that book.
Yes, a very powerful book, and there's a lot of really good examples of how the people who just stayed in their lane and made sure they were financially intelligent were successful, and the companies who didn't crashed and burned to the ground because they kept spending more money and spending more money. And I think the through line is assuming that spending more will bring you more is not true. But assuming more will get you more is not true, particularly if you don't have the talents to sustain more results. So I think that's an important distinction. What else do we have? Next Level Live. We talked a little bit about events here. Next Level Live is March 26th, 2022. Again, we still have to lock down a venue and all that. We're out here, Jeff, in a little bit. Holiday season's upon us. Things are a little bit wild. But I can assure you that you will get to the next level if you attend this event. Alan and I, get that smile off your face.
I'm smiling because it's funny watching you plug things that you're like uncertain of the dates. It's great.
I'm very uncertain of the dates, and we have a really good idea of who is speaking, which is amazing. But I do know that live events have changed my life more than anything. Alan had to convince me to go to almost all of them. He had to convince me to do our first couple events, and he has convinced me to do this one as well. But I do know that if you put your butt in one of these seats, it'll change your life, genuinely. If this podcast is valuable, just imagine being in person with a bunch of other people who listen to this podcast and who really want to be successful, and seeing people in person talk about their genius zone. It will change your life. As we get more details, tickets and all that happy jazz will be in the show notes.
The other thing, too, Kevin and I both have spots for one-on-one coaching. I am very, very blessed to have gotten 2 new clients literally yesterday. I'm so pumped. My coaching in particular, it's a lot cheaper than you might think, and it's entirely focused on making you more successful financially, health, wealth, and love, more successful, more in alignment with your highest self. Right now, and I'm not going to be running this forever, it's $300 a month. You get bi-weekly calls, you get peak performance tracking. If you want to finally keep the promises you make to yourself and actually build momentum in your life, remember, if you have not been consistent, that is why you're not successful. I will help you be consistent. I was talking to a client earlier who stopped tracking, I think, 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, I noticed that you stopped tracking 2 weeks ago. He said, yeah, I got locked out of the spreadsheet and I fell out of the habit. I said, before our call today, go make educated guesses. Educated guess data is better than no data, because now he's going to have to go in and reflect like, okay, I bet you I did that about every other day. Okay, I did that probably once every 3 days. Oh, I did that every day. So it's the reflection, it's the tracking, it's the system, it's the culture, it's the accountability. So it's $150 per call, $300 per month, bi-weekly calls. It's unreasonably cheap. So please reach out.
Yeah, best money you can spend other than, spend it over at Next Level Podcast Solutions. Alan's definitely so much. In fact, I do want to give a shout out. We are blessed enough to be working with Tori Aletto. As of today, when we're recording this episode, Tori Aletto just launched her podcast with us, The Imperfect Person, which I came up with that name for her. No, a little, humble brag. But this is it just further speaks to, at one point, that was a dream. Like, I remember when we first interviewed Tori, I was like, oh my goodness, like, what an amazing human being. I'd love to be friends with her. And like, I literally have text messages right now in my phone, like, that I have to get to after this from Tori. And now Tori's a client of ours and a friend of ours. You never know what can happen to you in your life when you get to the next level. And I just wanted to share that because it's a big success story for me. I feel very happy about the fact that we get to work with Tori, and she trusts us enough to do her podcast. So if you do want your podcast to grow, scale, monetize, reach out to me and we'll get that thing going.
Kevin studies podcasting every single day.
I do.
And he does podcasting every single day.
I do.
And as far as podcasts go, I'll say this quickly and we'll go. But I was thinking about the other day, there's 2.66 million podcasts. There's probably 2.8 or so now. Yeah. Of those 2.66 million podcasts, how many of them have surpassed the $250,000 profit mark, or gross revenue, not profit, gross revenue mark?
So small.
And then on top of that, how many of them have 800 episodes? So we're very, very blessed. We're finally starting to see some of the fruits from our labor. And if you want to learn about podcasting, who better to learn from than someone who has done 800 episodes of their own show and also thousands of episodes of the combined clients that we have. So please reach out. Super grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for being on this journey, and we will talk to you on the next one. Love it.
What are you trying to do, my outro?
No.
Stay in your lane, son. No, I'm just kidding. Tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow for episode number 803, Strategy Saturday, how high is your self-awareness? We're going to revisit the Drive to 5. We've really learned so much about it in humans since we last did an episode on it. Drive to 5 is a game changer. One of the best things we've ever, I don't want to say created, but discovered. It's changed our coaching. It's changed our team leading. It's changed our relationship. It's changed everything. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And we do not have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.